Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cyrus Webb Presents. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again. For those tuning in on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and X, we're glad you all can be with us. We're about to connect with our friends over on IG so they can be a part of our conversation. And last but certainly not least, going to connect with our friends over on Amazon. Have a great guest coming up for you guys today. So I'm excited about this one. And we are live now on Amazon Live, and we appreciate you guys joining us for Cyrus Webb Presents. If you guys are new, make sure you guys do hit that follow button. You see it either here in this corner or down below. You also will see the book by our next guest. We're excited to welcome Jennifer Griffith to our broadcast today. She's the author of this book, Both Sides of Then. And we're going to highlight the paperback for you guys on Amazon. You guys can see it's on sale right now. You can get it or the Kindle edition. We'll talk to Jennifer not only about the writing of the book and the sharing of her own story, but the connection she's been able to make with readers around the world as well. If you guys are just now finding out about Jennifer, we will let you guys know how to connect with her, as well as, of course, how you can get your own copy of the book. Jennifer, thank you again for spending some time with us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I am thrilled to be here.
Look, the pleasure's definitely all mine. We were just having a great conversation before this conversation.
It's always before you hit record that all the good stuff comes out, right?
Right. But what I was saying to you was when this book was first pitched to me, I was excited about it because I love the idea of your being able to not only share a bit of your own truth, but also that of your family as well. So I want to ask you, now that the book has been out, what has that been like for you, Jennifer, to see the connection that you're making with strangers just by sharing your own story?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. My original intention was to write my mother's story only. And so I did write her story first. And then I was encouraged by a wonderful editor to write my story as well, because in the beginning, my voice was just at the beginning and the end. And she said, no, I think you have a story to tell. And it took me a while to believe that because my mother's story is so compelling. It's cinematic. It's very Dickens-like. And when I actually ventured to write my story, what happened is that I realized that we all have a story to tell and that there's extraordinary stories in just living an ordinary life. And I would say I have a pretty ordinary life. And the thing to answer your question that's really engaging with people is that they're starting to see their own story in my narrative and the simple things that I had to overcome, the complex things that I had to overcome. And everybody, no matter what their background, is identifying with my family and some of the struggles that we had and some of the triumphs. And that's been a really wonderful thing, is having people see themselves in my narrative. And I'm a firm believer that we all have a story to tell, but when we share our narratives is when we start feeling more connected to other people and we have a greater sense of community. And that is really my goal in sharing this story.
Yeah, as you were just talking, I was replaying one of the scenes in the book, Jennifer, from your mom's perspective that we have in the book, and that is even going for a job, right, and feel like you have to talk about what you've done, and here's proof of who I am. I think that's one of the big messages of this book that people will connect with. I think a lot of us, we do become connected to the titles, right? Or the things that we feel like make us someone or make us fit in. What was that like for you to think about from her perspective of having to almost try to prove that she could do something or be something?
Yes, I think my mom was always struggling for agency in life because she lost her parents at a young age and was raised in an orphanage. And I think the world was trying to knock her down as she went. And she was always trying to stake claim to a sense of normalcy. Having a normal life is what my mom always said. She said, I just wanted a normal life. And when I zipped myself in her skin and I wrote her story in first person, I really gained a greater understanding of everything that my mother went through and what a hero she was just to make it. And when I did that as a daughter, I had a greater sense of respect for her and empathy for the life that she lived before she became my mom. Yeah. And there's a really wonderful thing that happens when you try and have a greater understanding of your parents as people. You end up having a greater understanding of who you are as a person. And that is the thing that my platform, I really want to encourage people to do, is to try and have a greater sense of the people that raised you, because in their story are the pieces to your own puzzle.
Mm-hmm. And I think even in how we engage with others, and I think a lot of times we hear these phrases around that can be scary sometimes, Jennifer, the sins of the mother, the sins of the father. And we start thinking, okay, am I going to be, you know, is this going to be me? Is this what I'm going to be like? What was it like for you just to be able to realize that you could just be and not have to worry about what may have come before you, but just focus on being the you that was you?
Yes. And as a reader of the book, you'll understand, and you understand, that it took me a long time to be okay with who I was, and that I definitely struggled with myself and having acceptance of who I was. But when I saw our stories together in a book and I did that work, I felt so much freer. I didn't feel bogged down by the things that happened in my family. I felt actually empowered, and I saw the strength in everything that we overcame individually and collectively as a group.
Love that. I'm going to give some shout outs. Hello to you, Joker. Good to be to see you over there on IG. Kevin, hello to you over there on IG. For those that are just coming in, see you guys over there on YouTube as well. Welcome. You all are watching Cyrus Webb Presents. We're joined today by Jennifer Griffith, the author of this book, Both Sides of Then. We're going to talk about the title here in a bit, but we're talking to Jennifer about what it's been like for her to see the response from we, the reader, and what it's been like for her to share her own story. For you guys joining us over there on Amazon, I type you guys a welcome message, but you will notice that Jennifer's book, the paperback's on sale right now for $17.42. The Kindle edition is $14.99. We have it highlighted for you guys in the carousel. For those joining us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, we have the link to get Jennifer's book in the comment section. On X, it's in the comment section as well. And on Instagram, after we wrap up, we'll put it in the story as well. Tina Siemens, hello to you. I see you over there from Texas over on Facebook. I want to talk to you about the title of the book, Both Sides of Then, Jennifer, because I think, again, when the book was pitched to me, I thought I had an idea what the title would be about. But what I thought about as a reader, I'm curious for yourself, when you came up with the title, Both Sides of Then, what was going through your mind?
Well, a couple of things. One is the Joni Mitchell song, Both Sides Now. Actually, that song inspired my writing of my mother's story. I would listen to that song over and over and over again. The lyrics, I think, are so definitive of what it means to live and love. And to get myself in my mother's place in first person, I would listen to that song over and over again. And an interesting thing for your readers to know is my mother was a mother that had to surrender her firstborn, my brother, for adoption in the decades before Roe. And actually, I only learned after I submitted the book for a final time to the publisher that Joni Mitchell, who is the singer of Both Sides Now, had to do that as well. And so I don't think you can write that song and sing that song the way that she does without having gone through that painful experience that both my mother and Joni went through, as well as millions of other women. But the title for me is looking at our lives in order to know where you're going and to know where you're headed and where your future is. Often you have to look at the past, and you have to look at your own past, and you have to look at your family's past to better understand where you're headed. And that is one of the reasons that I think that title is so fitting. I did have a couple of people tell me that that wasn't the right title, but I dug in and I believe in it. And I think a lot of people appreciate it now too.
Yeah, I think, and I love that, Jennifer. I thought for myself, after I finished the book, what I thought was interesting about the title, Both Sides of Then, is that a lot of times, we've heard that saying, the grass is always greener, right, on the other side, but we never know sometimes, what people have had to go through, right? And I think to sometimes be able to find out someone's story, and you think about, okay, wow, no, I really wouldn't, know how I would react in this situation or deal with this. I thought, that was really interesting to think about, that not only did you have your perspective and your mother's perspective, but the reader can then be able to think, I thought, okay, if I found myself in this situation, would I have been as strong? Would I have been as resilient? And also, would I want that type of strength like you displayed? So that's one thing that came to mind. Tina says, amen, the history of family. And it is that for sure. One of the chapters I thought was really interesting is, as you were talking about in chapter 21, the wedding. That's one of your chapters. I think it also goes to the idea of what family truly means. Was that one of the things that you hoped kind of came out in this as well, Jennifer, has helped people to kind of think about family in a different way?
Absolutely. And look, families are this imperfect cluster of different people. And you can have a family sit down, 6 people sit at a dinner table, and everybody's going to walk away with a different memory. And everybody in my family from my sister's wedding walks away with a different memory of that event. But we all have to come together individually and as a family as the different people we are. And the way to get to acceptance is on the other side of forgiveness, let me say, is acceptance and love. And this book was a love letter to my mother, but also a way of me accepting her as the woman she was before she became my mom and my mom. And I can say that, I didn't love everything that happened in my childhood, but I now understand it. And there is so much freedom in that. And that's what I encourage people to do, is just go back and try and look at your parents and your family members as the people that they are versus who you expect them to be and what your anticipation was of their role in your life. And I think there's so much love and acceptance and empathy in that exercise.
So true. Tracy O'Neill Horton, good to see you over there on Facebook, over there on IG. I see you, Jesus Black Man. Also, T-Nail Radio and TV. Hello to you as well. Jennifer Griffith is our guest for this segment today. We're discussing her book. You guys can see there, Both Sides of Then. It's on sale right now, the paperback on Amazon, or you can be to get the Kindle to go ahead and start reading it today. We're talking to Jennifer about what it's been like for her to share not only her story, but also her mom's story, and also the idea of choices. You said a word earlier that, of course, anyone that's on social these days have used to saying, you said it one time, but it's stuck with me, and that is your platform. And I love the fact that you look at it that way, because I think a lot of times, and I remember interviewing my grandmother, Jennifer, at the age of 90, but right before she died. And her thinking, okay, why did you want to interview me? I haven't done anything, that big. But this was a woman that for me was so remarkable, gave me my first haircut, lived to see 23 presidents, and had done some things that she didn't even think about. What has that been like for you to use your platform to show that all of us have a story that deserves to be shared and deserves to be validated?
It has been incredible. I get to meet remarkable people, learn new things. And I never imagined that I would write about some of my darkest moments and some of my greatest moments in my book, and that it would resonate with people on such a meaningful way. And I think for a long time, because my mother was silenced and told to forget what happened to her when she was young and when she relinquished, I feel empowered by the female voice that I was able to share, her voice and my voice, and that this connection that people are feeling to my story is something that we all need. And so I feel like my book was my have to do in life. And when my father passed away 9 years ago, I remember sitting with him and he said, it just went so fast. And that was the moment I decided to leave my tech career and write the book, because I knew in order to be satisfied with my life, I would have to fulfill my dream of writing. What I did not expect was that I would meet so many people who wanted something like this, because they wanted to see themselves in, I call the extraordinary experiences that ordinary people live. And that has been the most fulfilling thing of my platform, is giving space to that thing that we all need to see each other as similar, living similar. We're all going through good and bad things, both sides of life, getting back to the title. Mm-hmm. All of these elements are in our world. And the more that we talk about it, the more connected we feel to that general experience, that you have to accept the good with the bad. And that's, the dance of life, really.
Yeah. There's one of Whitney Houston's last songs that she released, Jennifer, that comes to mind. I Didn't Know My Own Strength. Mm-hmm. And I remember seeing her perform that on the Oprah Winfrey Show. We were talking about Oprah earlier. And I thought to myself, with you, when you were just saying that, did this book also remind you of your own strength?
It did. It reminded me that everything your breakdowns are your breakthroughs. And I think trauma of any kind can be transformational. And when I allowed myself to write about those things in a vulnerable way, vulnerability is a superpower. And that is the thing, getting to your point, love Whitney, shout out to Whitney. But we all have these incredible strengths within us that I don't think we celebrate enough.
Right.
And that is the thing that I really want people to take away from this book, is that in my mother's story and in my story, we're just trying to make it. We're just trying to have a life and feel loved and feel fulfilled. And that's the journey. That's the hero's journey. And my mom is the hero of her story. I don't want to call myself a hero because I don't feel that way, but I do think that the things that I've gone through have allowed me to stand here and talk to you and have a platform and feel connected to strangers in a deep and meaningful way. And that the struggles I went through, there was value in them.
I want to ask advice for our audience out there. Tina Siemens, who is watching us there from Texas, over on Facebook, she is an historian, but also an author. She's chronicled her own family's journey as well. It takes a lot of courage to do that, and I feel like, because to be vulnerable that way, but also I think it takes a lot of strength. Going back to what we were just discussing there, was there anything that surprised you, Jennifer, that you shared about your own story?
That I actually put it in print.
Right.
1,000%. It was interesting. I've had great, when you're pursuing a creative endeavor, always look for the helpers. And I had great helpers along the way. And so many people who just told me, keep going there, keep going deeper, keep opening up that vein. And when you hit that vein, that's when you hit pay dirt, meaning that's when you've hit the momentum of a story. But I did, one of my most shameful moments was a car accident that I was in when I was a teenager, and I had been drinking, and I lived in a small town, and the accident happened in the middle of town, and everybody was there to see it. And it was my moment of shame. But it was also my moment of transformation, because I realized that I was in a bad spot. I wasn't going in the right direction, and that I needed to empower myself to change my life. Nobody was going to do it for me. I had to do it. My parents weren't going to save me. I was going to have to save myself. And I was 17 years old. And that was a very hard moment to write about. And it was one that I actually, for many years, decades, put in the past, and I didn't want to revisit. But I knew as I went deeper into the story, as I was encouraged to do, that scene meant something, and that scene was going to mean something for other people once I went there. And my audiobook is out now too, and I read it, and that was by far the hardest chapter to read. I broke down many times, because as a mother now, I was feeling in reflection how lost that young girl was, that young version of me. And I will say, I did write this book for the younger version of myself, to free her and to give her space and healing in a way that I needed decades ago.
Wow, that's powerful. I'm glad you mentioned that about the audiobook. We'll add that to the carousel as well here, Jennifer, for sure. I do want to ask you this, and I appreciate you stopping by. What advice would you give to others about the importance of sharing their own stories?
Well, the importance is, it's everything. When shame will silence people, and when we hold things in, they end up owning us. And what I encourage people to do is free them. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to write a memoir like I did, write about your most shameful moments. But I think in just reaching out to people and sharing your story in whatever capacity, you are going to free some things inside of yourself, and you're going to find people who are going to lift you up. And I think that's another important thing, is that there's so many wonderful people out there that when you open, because this is what you do, when you share your narrative, it's amazing what the universe sends in response, right? And if you hold it in, you just don't know what you're going to get, right? You don't know if you're losing a friendship of some sort, or if you're losing some sort of connection that's going to lift your life up. And I feel very lifted in doing this vulnerable act of writing a memoir, for sure.
Yeah. And it definitely takes the vulnerability, but also, as I mentioned, that strength and courage. So we appreciate you doing that. Again, everyone, Jennifer Griffith has been our guest. Both Sides of Then is the book that's available now, not only in paperback and Kindle, but also the audiobook as well. As Jennifer was just sharing with us, available here on Amazon. Jennifer, I appreciate you stopping by. How can our audience stay connected with you?
Yes, my website's probably the best place. There's a lot of Jennifer Griffiths in the world. So my website is, who knew, is by jennifergriffith.com. And all my social links are there. I have resources for people who want to perhaps journal about their families and go through some of the steps that I went through to put the pieces together, as well as my podcast About Your Mother, Where Your Story Begins is on there. And just some more details about the things that I've built within my platform after going through this very long exercise of writing a memoir and writing about my family.
Love that. Well, thank you again for stopping by. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to our next conversation together.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been an honor.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And we thank you, our audience, for tuning in to another great segment of Cyrus Webb Presents. Until next time, you all make it a great one. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.